friends, it's great to be back together with you as we prepare for another Shabbat. I found during these weeks of isolation, these weeks of quarantine, when any given day we don't necessarily even know what day it is, we don't necessarily even know what month it is, that Shabbat is so grounding, it's so meaningful that we are commanded to come together. We have a responsibility to Hashem, we have an obligation to one another, we have an obligation to our community to just stop and to rest. And as I was preparing for Shabbat this week, I was reading this week's Torah portion, Parshat Emor, and I found myself called to one particular verse, which I want to share with you. The verse is in the first chapter of our Parsha, verse 12. We read these words, Umin hamikdash lo yetzeh. We're talking here about the Kohen who is in the sanctuary, should not go out from this holy place. V'lo yechalel et mikdash Elohav. The Kohen should not profane the sanctuary of Hashem, of his God. Ki nezer shemen mishchat Elohav alav. This Kohen has this unique relationship with Hashem, this distinction of having the shemen hamishchat, of having the oil of consecration upon his head. Ani Hashem. I am Hashem. I am Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh. I am the one who is, the one who was, the one who will be. The pshat of this verse is somewhat simple, as we are talking about the deceased relatives for whom a Kohen is able to profane himself, to mourn for them, to bury his loved ones. We find this verse. And Rashi and our medieval commentators say that this is simple. It means that the Kohen has a responsibility, yes, to his family members, but has a responsibility to Hashem. And that in this period of aninut, between when hearing about the loss of a loved one and between burying that loved one, the Kohen should continue his responsibilities as a Kohen, offering sacrifices in the sanctuary on behalf of the people. The Kohen adheres and is required to abide by rules that are slightly different than the rest of the community. But here we are, we're living in Cleveland in our case, and many, many years after the destruction of the temple. So what was it about not going out from this holy place that spoke to me, that jumped off the page? In comes Rabbi Isaiah Horowitz, the Shlaha Kodesh, who says on this verse that we are servants of the Holy Blessed One, says that each of us is meant to make ourselves like a Kohen, even though we're living after the destruction, that each of us should try to ascend, each and every one of us should try to act, to achieve the level of Kedusha, the level of sanctity, of holiness, as the Kohen working in the sanctuary. And that even though sometimes we have to turn away and we have to deal with worldly things, that our mind should always be turned towards Hashem, our heart should always be turned toward Hashem. We should always be striving for holiness. This got me thinking about the Brich Shameh that we say when we're gathered together in our shul and we're taking the Torah out on Shabbat. We begin this paragraph, this excerpt from the Zohar, with the words Brich Shameh Demara Alma, and we end them with singing Be'ana Rachetz together. But in the middle, there are 5 important words that have, at the instruction of one of my teachers, Rabbi Rim Meyerowitz, become a bit of a mantra for me, and I hope they will for you as well. The words in Aramaic are Ana Uvda de Kudsha Brichu. We are servants of the Holy Blessed One. There are times when we feel disconnected from one another and from Hashem. There are times when we feel like perhaps we are not fully engaged with life in as sacred a way as we might otherwise like. And those are the times when I like to pause, I like to take a deep breath, and I like to say to myself, Ana uvda de kudsha brichu, that I am ultimately a servant of the Holy Blessed One. And even though for just a moment I might feel like I've turned away, I'm working on something else, I know that in the root of my soul I am connected to God, and I know that when I turn back, I'm going to be turning back towards Hashem. So as we get back to knowing what day it is, as we get back to preparing for Shabbat, I want to encourage us to say these words to ourselves. To say, Ana uvda dekucha brichu, I am a servant of the Holy Blessed One. Umina mikdash lo tetzeh, as our verse says, lo yetze, that our Kohen, just like our Kohen, should not turn away from that which is sacred. He should turn towards it. So should we turn towards that which is sacred. So should we remember always our servitude, our connection to Hashem. Shabbat Shalom.